Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I used to get that all the time when I was a kid growing up. Did you cop that one?
Okay, boomer. You're just giving away your age now.
Yeah, I did kind of date myself, didn't I? Does anyone say that anymore? I have not heard it for decades.
I don't think I've heard it either.
Can words harm? That's our topic today. There's a brand new research article out, and today is a Doctor's Desk episode where we dive into the latest research and have a look at how research can inform our parenting. The Words Can Harm scale is a brand new instrument that's been devised by Samuel Pratt, Peyton Jones and colleagues, helping us to understand what a belief in the harm of words does or does not do for the resilience of children, young people, and even adults. Can words harm? We discuss that next on the Happy Families podcast. Stay with us. G'day, this is the Happy Families podcast. Welcome. So good to have you along. Thank you so very much for joining us. If you're new to the pod, every Thursday on the Happy Families podcast, we talk about brand new research that is supposed to enlighten your mind and help you to be a better parent. We are Coulson and Kylie Coulson. We're the parents of 6 daughters. And Kylie, study that's just been published captured my attention. I saw it and I thought, oh my goodness, this is really different. It's not pure parenting like we normally talk about, but it has so much overlay into the environment that we create for our kids. It's called the Words Can Harm Scale, Measuring Beliefs About Harmful Speech, published in July 2026 in Personality and Individual Differences. We will link to it in the show notes. I know some people are saying already, it's not July 2026 yet. How can it have been published? Well, it's online first, which is how I got access to it. So let me ask you a question. We haven't prepped this. I don't know what you're going to say. Do you think that words can harm? Like I'm thinking before you answer of the In Excess song. I'm dating myself here. There's a line in their song Devil Inside that says, words are weapons sharper than knives. So are they? Can they harm?
I think there's a lot of nuance there, but I would suggest that it's not actually the words themselves, but the weight that we put on those words that impacts how we perceive things.
Yeah, right. That makes sense because if somebody calls me a name with a big smile on their face and we've just been joking around about something and I've done something dumb and they're somewhat close to me and trusted, then I'm probably going to go, you're a good one, because they've just called me a name. Whereas if somebody cuts me off on the street and then they call me that same name, I'm going to apply a different weight to the word. I'm going to put a whole lot of different meaning behind it, yeah?
Yeah, we were talking with the kids the other night and they asked us about a word and we kind of said, we don't say that word. And they said, well, how come? Because it really just means this. And I said, yeah, unfortunately, other people have put another connotation onto it. And so when you say that word, most people don't think of that. They think of another thing. And so I think that plays a part. I also think the relationship that exists between two people impacts the way we receive words. Yeah, I think there's a lot of nuance behind it.
So here's the background. American researchers wanted to measure, I think this is a really slippery idea and it's also really contentious. It's not can words cause lasting psychological harm. We know that they can, but is there something in our value system? Is there something in our framing, the way that we view the world? Like about a week and a half ago, we did that podcast episode where we talked about how we have these limiting beliefs and we apply a filter on everything that happens to us. So they're essentially saying, depending on the filter that you have, is it true or untrue that words can and do cause lasting harm? So
I think about unequal relationships. You think about a child versus an adult, and you spend all of your child's life calling them names and belittling them.
Yeah, and
their words
goes into their heart and mind, right?
This absolutely shapes their world, as opposed to 2 equal adults who get to make a decision on what those words mean.
So let me run through a couple of the questionnaire items, and you tell me whether you think that these are true or not, or to the degree to which you agree with them. Okay, so 1 is I totally disagree, and 5 is I completely agree, and 3 is I'm neutral.
Again, are you asking me to agree for me personally
or
for the world at large?
No, I'm asking you to divulge, to share. I'll do the same if you want. Here's the first one. I could be left emotionally scarred by something I read.
Well, I could be.
Okay, so remember the extent to which you agree with this, right? So the idea of
I choose to be emotionally scarred.
Well,
like ultimately, that's what it comes down to. I make a choice.
You're thinking about this too hard. When you do a psychology survey, you just say the first thing that comes to mind that feels true for you.
No.
Okay, so you're saying one out of 5? Do you completely disagree?
Oh, I've got to give you a scale.
Yeah, that's what I said to you. Oh. Yeah. Maybe we should do more prep for these podcast episodes. I thought this was so self-explanatory. 1 to 5, where 1 is completely disagree with the statement and 5 is I completely agree with the statement.
Okay, I'll go 2.
Yeah, 2. Okay. So I'm going to go with a 1 on that one. What about this one? I could be traumatized without ever being touched just through someone's hurtful words.
4.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to go with like a 1, maybe a 2 if I'm being generous there. For me, most things are water off a duck's back, right? It's just, if that's what you think, then you're the one who has to live with it. I don't actually have to.
Yeah, but again,
I look at it as I'm living rent-free in your space.
Yeah, but if it's your mum or your dad and they've said something to you, or it's a total stranger down the street, again, the weight that those words carry is dependent on relationship.
Here's the next one. Exposing someone to a triggering idea can seriously damage their mental health.
1.
I should be careful about what I say as it could permanently damage someone's emotional health.
3. This is hard.
Even a simple phrase can be emotionally traumatizing for someone vulnerable.
Well, someone vulnerable would say 5.
But I'm not asking someone vulnerable. I'm asking you whether you agree with this or not.
This is just...
Here's the last one we'll do. There is great power in the words we choose, either to heal others or to permanently harm them.
Oh, this is just awful. I'm going to say 5.
You've gone from... We started this and you're like, nah, not at all. Words don't hurt. And you've finished this saying there could be permanent, lifelong damage if somebody says the wrong thing.
Because of what they put weight on it.
Okay.
I don't want to be that person.
So again, you're highlighting the weight that a person might put on it. In other words, you're applying the filter. And this is a question about what you believe, not what other people believe. And this is why these studies are so fascinating and so important.
I'm really struggling to put this into context because if you're asking me...
Right. I am asking you.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about other people as I'm answering. Yeah. It's really hard to separate myself from other people.
So I am as well. As I'm asking the questions, I'm thinking I know people who, I'm going to use the term fragile. I'm not using it in a denigrating or derogatory way or in a put down way.
They've had really difficult life circumstances that have left them feeling really tender, fragile and
therefore they have felt like they have been permanently harmed because I know that I've said things that have left people feeling that way. It actually feels quite awful. But I'm also thinking about it because the filter that I have is that words don't harm. It's what we think about the words later that causes the harm.
That's exactly right.
That's the filter that I have. Therefore, this is why people will say when I give my presentations that sometimes I can be a little direct. I can sometimes trample on the sensitivities of other people. I don't mean to, but I kind of think I'm just giving you really good information here. What you do with it is going to be up to you. But some people will internalize it. They'll carry it with them. They'll say, I can't ever go and listen to Justin Coulson speak again because he said that really harmful thing that paralyzed me, that traumatized me, that made me feel unsafe.
I think that everyone will have been in an experience where you've been in a conversation with a group of people and someone has said something and 95% of you are kind of like, yeah, I agree. And then one person is completely mortified, emotionally distraught and really, really upset by what's been shared.
Yep.
And that goes back to that original conversation that we started with. It comes down to the weight that I choose to put on those words.
Yep.
So you put me on the spot and it was really hard to separate because if it was me, after learning all the things that I've learnt, I'm responsible. I'm the one who's responsible for how I respond and how I perceive the words that are coming at me. I get to decide. But my experience with other people is that it's not that easy. So what did they actually find?
First of all, the scale was very, very robust, really reliable over time, really what we call internally consistent, which means that when you answer one way with one thing, you generally answer the same way with all of the things. Of course, you were a little bit different there because of the way that you were doing that. And it was also meaningfully connected to a whole cluster of other traits and attributes, which was really interesting.
Maybe I have multiple personalities.
You want to know who scored really high on this?
Girls, women.
Yes. Yes. But it wasn't just females. It was people who believe that words cause serious harm tend to be younger, female, and more politically liberal. Whereas grouchy old men were just like toughen up, right? That's kind of the idea.
I watch this at the dinner table when we have all of our kids over and we have our son-in-law.
Yep.
And outside of you, he's the only other male influence we've had in the home for a really long time. And every now and again, he just kind of shuts everything down really fast, really hard, very concise. And the girls all kind of bristle.
Feelings be damned.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And he's not actually being unkind. It's just, that's just how he sees it. Whereas as women, we're constantly worried about how other people are going to perceive us, how they're going to respond, whether or not we're going to upset them. Yep. So I can see how that plays out.
So the researchers also found that those people who scored really highly on the words can harm scale more likely to support trigger warnings, safe spaces, and restrictions on controversial speech. They also score higher on empathy, and they score higher on intellectual humility. But they also score higher on something called moral grandstanding and a tendency to see themselves as victims. So I thought that was really, really interesting. Now, here's the uncomfortable and most fascinating part of all of this. They also report significantly worse mental health.
Yeah.
So they're more likely to experience anxiety, depression, less resilience, and more emotional dysregulation, which I find really, really curious. So after the break, what I want to talk about, before we go to the break, quickly, the researchers themselves said this: let's not draw causal conclusions. It's correlational data. But there's three possibilities for why these results are there. As you've already said, people who've been genuinely feel like they've been harmed by speech, they develop it through experience. That is, this person said this happened over here. I'm now carrying the burden of that. I can't let it go. So that becomes the filter through which they see the world because they haven't processed it effectively and been able to move on. It's really gotten into their psyche. Secondly, they've said maybe it's actually the belief itself that makes people more psychologically fragile. Like if I believe that words can harm, then I'm going to be a more fragile person. And the third thing that they introduced as an idea is that there might be some other variable, like just not being a very resilient person or being a highly neurotic person that could drive both. Realistically, it's probably a combination of all three. So after the break, even though we've spent way too long on the study itself, isn't science fun? Isn't science great? After the break, we're going to talk about what it means for us as parents raising kids in an environment where they're consistently being told that words can harm and how we can help them to be resilient in the face of words that can sometimes, if not harm, certainly hurt. We're back. It's the Happy Families podcast talking about the words can harm scale, which we'll link to in the show notes. A brand new research instrument looking at how the filter that we put on the words that we hear might affect our resilience or our children's resilience. I think that there's a whole lot here, Kylie, that is impactful on the way we raise kids to be really resilient and avoid anxiety and depression and so many of the mental health challenges that we're seeing.
Well, I'm going to minimize your chatter here.
You're going to minimize my chatter.
I'm going to minimize your chatter because we could talk about this all day by the sounds of it. What are your top three things that are going to help parents the most?
You're so funny. All right.
No cheating.
You know how, what you mean by adding extras in?
Yes.
Yeah. You know how I'm always banging on about those basic psychological needs: competence, relatedness, autonomy, a feeling that I'm in control of my life, a feeling that I'm capable of doing stuff, and a feeling that I've got a strong sense of connection. I feel as though if children feel like they can handle what the world throws at them, they're going to be more resilient, right? That's something that I am teaching day in and day out. And so when we signal to kids, whether it's implicit or explicit, whether we're saying to them, if we say certain words or ideas are so powerful that they might break them, what we're doing is we're communicating fragility rather than capability or capacity. We're essentially saying, like I started the podcast, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. We're saying the opposite. We're saying words become your reality and words can harm you. And so you need to be careful that you're not surrounding yourself with words that are harmful. And I think there's also just, I guess there's part B because I'm not allowed to cheat. There's an idea called concept creep. And I think that it really applies here. The researchers talked about it. They said there's a tendency for definitions of harm to expand over time so that more and more experiences get categorized as potentially traumatic. So when post-traumatic stress disorder was first discussed back in the 70s, prior to that it was called shell shock after World War II, it was a very, very clear definition, and people only experience post-traumatic stress disorder if they'd been in horrific things. And we've allowed concept creep because we want to be compassionate and empathic for people who have been through things that aren't quite as horrific but are still horrible. And I'm not downplaying the horribleness of them at all. But what happens is that the word trauma begins to encapsulate more and more and more and more. And so I think that there's genuine debate about whether it's good to raise important awareness or if we're lowering children's threshold for distress. And I think the data in this study seems to suggest that we are actually lowering children's threshold for coping with distress. We are making them less resilient, because a child who grows up hearing that kind of language could really damage you. They're literally being handed a framework that makes them a potential victim in kind of any rude or uncomfortable or slightly distressing encounter. And I know how bad and rough that sounds when I'm saying it, but the reality is that's the filter, and therefore it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I think so often the hurtful words that come at us are, especially in today's day and age with social media being such a huge part of our kids' lives, so often the things that come to us that have, I guess, negative connotation to them are generally speaking from people we don't even know.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing a podcast once, I can't remember the origin of it, but it was just the acknowledgement, if you would not ask for advice from that person,
why would you take their criticism?
Yeah. Why would you let that impact you? And that has had a really, really profound impact on me. And when our kids come home and they talk to us about different things that have happened, I literally just remind them, I'm like, so would you actually go to that person if you were in trouble? Would you ask them for their help or their opinion?
I should just highlight here, this doesn't mean that words don't matter. Like, words do matter. The question is, there's a really big difference between words that are cruel and unkind and nasty and the belief that words can permanently harm you. And you would have noted when I went through those questionnaire items, they were very much saying these words will permanently cause harm, trauma, damage. And the reason they put the word permanently in is because all of us walk away from an unkind encounter smarting. All of us walk away wincing and going, gosh, that was horrible.
Isn't it interesting, though, that if you are in a position where you are striving for growth and learning, that you can look back on a situation years later and see it so differently?
Yeah, you absolutely can. There are two more things that I want to run through, and we're out of time, so can I run through them really fast? I promise I'll be quick. One of the things that really stood out to me is that empathy, people who are high on empathy scored high on the words can harm scale. So that's a plus. Like, we don't want to downplay empathy. And you were struggling with the questionnaire items because you have high levels of empathy. Whereas for me, I'm less empathic. I care a great deal about people, but I kind of don't get caught up in all the stuff. I just have that little bit less empathy, I guess. And so for me, it's much easier to say 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, that kind of thing. Whereas you're kind of like, oh, but how are they feeling? But I think it's worth highlighting, the same people also score higher on moral grandstanding and interpersonal victimhood, which means that concern for other people's feelings can kind of tip into an identity that's built around sensitivity and harm. And I don't think that's helpful. We want to help kids to feel with others, not just for them. Like, feeling with someone means that you sit in that discomfort with them, and that requires resilience. Feeling for someone can collapse into avoidance because I need to protect you or I need to protect myself, or it just means that I click every social campaign online so that I can say that I'm standing with this person and that person and everyone else. I don't think that's helpful for values. And the last one that I'm going to mention is that the paper asks this question. It basically says, does shielding people from difficult words and ideas protect them, or does it prime them for more distress when contact with those words is inevitable? And I think the research here, specifically the research on anxiety sensitivity, which correlates really highly with the words can harm scale, it tells us that anxiety sensitivity is the fear of anxiety itself. That is, it's a belief that feeling anxious is dangerous. And that's been scientifically shown, it just amplifies anxiety disorders. So I think the take-home message is really simple. Very much contested territory. Some see the expansion of harm awareness as an overdue recognition that people really are suffering, and others see it as a driver of fragility. Both are probably partly right. I definitely lean in one direction more than the other, but in fairness, both are probably partly right. What we need to do as parents, though, is take language seriously, but build kids who aren't at the mercy of that language.
For me, it's actually really important for them to recognise that the way they perceive the words is actually on them. They get to decide and determine the weight of those words. That's theirs. So when I have an interaction with somebody that leaves me feeling troubled and hurt, while it would be lovely to think in a perfect world that people would say nice things all the time, how I respond to that is mine. That's mine. And if I want to carry that baggage of hurt and anger around for 20 years, that's on me. That has nothing to do with the person who said the words.
Yeah. But we've got to help our children and people generally to be able to process this stuff so that they're not carrying it, because that's a heavy load to carry for 5 minutes, let alone 25 years.
But so many of us choose.
Right.
We choose it. We choose to carry it.
Maybe we should do another episode on how to let go of that sort of stuff. It's sometimes requires some really hard work, especially when it's somebody close, somebody that you trusted who's hurt you. The study will be linked in the show notes. Hopefully there's a bunch of ideas in here to get you talking to the kids around the table about whether words can harm or not. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Mim Hammonds provides our admin and other support. For more information about making your family happier, visit us at happyfamilies.com.au.